I want to introduce our first presentation. We're going to hear about the evolving impacts from climate warming on mental health with Rick Kearbey, Senior Scientist for the CAC. So welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Who was here yesterday? Yeah, good to see everybody again. So yeah, I'm going to talk about climate warming and mental health, and I'm going to enlighten you, and I'm also going to try to give us all a path to go forward, because we have to have hope, right? We have to be inspired as well. So we face the challenges ahead, but then we have to move forward into our future. So we'll get into this because it's really fascinating what's going on. Climate warming is a major stressor on mental health. Studies show that anxiety continues to be an increasing threat. And this isn't always necessarily anxiety of somebody who's gone through, say, storm surge flooding. It can be wildfires. It can be the extreme heat, or just the anxiety of the unknown. A lot of young people face that. They're out of control. They don't control anything, right? They depend on their parents and their grandparents to kind of shape their world for them. So when they look and they hear about things like climate warming, they have a lot of concern for the future, because it's their future more than our future, and they're just getting started, and so they're inheriting this from us. So they also face a lot of anxiety. But everything does show that when there's education, it calms anxiety. Now you know what's happening. You know what's projected to happen. You know what needs to be done for things to be better in the future. Certainly in Florida, we have plenty of weather and climate issues that we're concerned about. They're increasing anxiety on a high level in Florida. You look at what happened with Hurricane Milton, what happened with Hurricane Helene, Debbie before that, the unnamed storms that produced flooding where we didn't think flooding was possible. No one in their wildest dreams would have imagined flooding in some of these neighborhoods. So it's been absolutely incredible. There are financial stressors from these storms as well, and a lot of us feel that. Some people don't even have a path with their homes because it's so expensive. It's happened too many times, and they're forced to migrate into other places. So that can create a real stress on people as well. And even what's happening with climate warming, it can have an impact on food costs and things like that. So there's a lot to think about with climate warming and all of the mental health issues that definitely apply to that. Climate change anxiety, this is a health term. These are new health terms. 30 years ago, even 10 years ago, we wouldn't have heard of a lot of these. Eco-anxiety, eco-grief, climate doom. These are all things. And if you look at this, the searches for climate anxiety on Google surged 565% in 2021. Those are the latest numbers from this study. But this is such a trend on all the search engines where people are seeking this information. And so this is one reason why you're all here today, we're here today. It's that education process. And you all can give this a voice as well and share this information with the people you care about and love. Reddit. I don't know if anybody gets on Reddit, but it's a huge source of information. Not all that accurate, but a lot of it is, but it's a great place to share. 700,000 members in a climate anxiety thread. Not climate anxiety. Almost 1 million people. Unbelievable. So climate certainly is driving mental health issues. Nearly 60% of young people are either very or extremely worried. And 45% in this Huffington Post article say they have negative effects on their daily life and functioning. So it can be something that weighs on you on a daily basis. And maybe it's not even something that you think about consciously, but it's just a weight. And, how can it not be? You, especially in Florida, you feel it. You feel the heat. You hear about the storm. There's anxiety right now. Has anybody heard about this Sarah, tropical storm Sarah? So everybody, Bob and I have been asked 1,000 times in the last 2 days, what's going to happen with Sarah? That's anxiety, right? We're all anxious about that. And Bob and I are anxious to talk about it. We're like, oh, okay. You want to be calm with people. All of the TV weather people, if you ever see their social media reports, they're like, real careful. It's like we're walking on eggshells. So and that's anxiety. We're feeling that. So we want to be real careful with our words right now too. So climate impacts, and if you look at this graphic here, it can of course affect medical and physical health, heat stress, heat stroke, stuff like that. We talked yesterday about vector-borne diseases, waterborne diseases. So that's one way that climate warming impacts our medical and physical health. And if you look at the bottom, community health, a warmer climate causes aggression. Maybe that's the problem on our roads. I don't know. There's a lot of crazy drivers out there. Hopefully I didn't pass by you and honk my horn ever, but. So there's a lot of things in our community as well, and then mental health you see in the middle. And, there's anxiety, depression, grief, sense of loss. There's a lot to talk about here, and we'll unwrap these for you. And again, then I'm going to kind of show, I think, what is a path forward for us. But believe it or not, it's causing PTSD, and in some cases, suicidal thoughts. People affected by weather disasters you see here there's a percentage that do have those suicidal thoughts. And if you look up some studies back in Hurricane Katrina, there was an increase of suicidal thoughts from 2.8% to 6.4%. So that is an incredible increase. Suicidal plans, that's a step forward from thoughts, went from 1% to 2.5% in that same time frame. So, a lot of this, maybe they don't have the wherewithal to do what they have to do. That could perhaps give them a sense of hopelessness. Maybe they don't have a community around them, family and friends to support them, because you really need everybody in situations like this when you're hit with these storms. Here's a great story. This is a doctor, an ER doctor, at All Children's Hospital in downtown St. Pete. Y'all probably have heard of this hospital and know this well. This is Dr. Megan Martin. She's an emergency medicine physician there, and her home was flooded 3 times in the past 4 years. There are some people that have been flooded several times this year. Unbelievable. She is flooded several times in the last 4 years, and her impact was unbelievable. She said she's felt anxiety and stress, and it's been a real rough time for her. She feels drained, exhausted, and she's at the point where she has a great career, she's in a beautiful location, but she just doesn't know how much more she can take of this. So she's contemplating her future here in Florida. And we talked yesterday about migration. So these are decisions that can kind of drive this too. People feel like maybe they have to go inland or even outland, as in out of Florida, north, maybe higher elevations, whatever the case may be. And then there's a psychoanalyst right there. That's her picture, Dr. Gail Saltson, and she says, and I mentioned this earlier, that trauma often leads to ongoing mental health struggles. So it's not something that fades away. Once we get the cleanup done, we go back to Selby Gardens and it looks beautiful again. They carry that after that, even when things look pretty again. So we really have to pay attention to that. Rita Simmons, here's another local story in Pinellas County. And Helene was really mean to Pinellas County. Did so much damage there. But she tells the story. She was preparing for the storm with her husband and her 2 daughters and her 77-year-old mother. And so great family, but it's a lot preparing for these storms, making sure everybody feels safe and we're prepared and everything. And she said she just broke out and cried in the middle of Publix one day. And so that was, dealing with all of this stress. So not only are we sometimes dealing with it, sometimes we try to hide it. Like the guys are tough, right? See my biceps? Yeah, I'm tough. We kind of do that, and it's not always a good thing because that builds up. So sometimes, fellas, it's okay to cry, right? And she was trying to hide emotion from her kids, and that's another one. Sometimes we don't want to show, and that's a good thing, right? We don't want to show the kids we're worried. We want them to feel safe and that we're in charge. But so those are some stories. I know you all have your own stories, and it's been a tough time for us for sure. But we definitely want to take care of our mental health and understand that it's extremely normal. So what all of you are feeling, extremely normal, and there's so many, thousands and thousands of people, and globally, millions of people that are feeling at least anxiety to what's going on with the warming climate. Some other local stories, the IV shortage. I know we talked about this yesterday, and who was it that said that originally we kind of put all of our eggs in one basket? The IV fluids were produced in one place in Puerto Rico. Then they got ravaged by storms, and guess what? They moved it to Asheville, North Carolina. So now that's the only place. And then Asheville, North Carolina, of course, gets hit, and that was unbelievable, right? There's another scenario no one in their wildest dreams imagined, the mudslides and water where there's never been water like that in those places. Unbelievable. And the IV plant there that makes the IV fluid has not been able to do that. So now they're canceling unnecessary surgeries, and only the most important ones are getting through and able to order those fluids. So we got to think about these things. So, to make a better future for us and for our kids, we have to learn, we have to adapt. The Climate Adaptation Center, we're all about adaptation. And so this is one thing we need to do. Why isn't there one somewhere else? There could be one in Florida, there could be one in Colorado, there could be one in Iowa. We have to learn from these things, and this is one takeaway for sure. Maybe we turn to other countries. Just kind of safeguard ourselves. When you invest money, you don't stick it all in one stock, because that would be foolish, right? We like to diversify. So we need to think about that. Some more stories here about extreme weather, these events we're seeing, how they can lead to PTSD and suicidal thoughts. Whoever would have thought PTSD would be related to weather? You just never would have thought that. And we continue to see that. So following Hurricane Katrina, again, we talked about the suicidal thoughts, but 6 months following Hurricane Andrew, the rate of homicide suicides doubled to 2 per month. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot. So again, this is going all the way back to Hurricane Andrew. We saw the same kinds of things. Here's another great example. Nicole Fontaine in Siesta Key says her PTSD after Hurricane Helene and Milton from all the water in her home has brought an incredible amount of anxiety to her, and said, I'm done. I love it here, but I'm done. I just can't take it. I'll visit, but I just can't do it anymore. So we hate to see that, because, we all love it here. We're here because of our environment, number one. I mean, some of you were born here, but you still love the environment, I'm sure. That's why you're still here. And people are feeling helplessness. They're feeling fear. They're feeling distress. So we'll break down a few categories for you. Number one, the heat-related stress. Was it a hot summer this year? Incredibly hot. This is probably going to be the hottest year we've ever seen on the planet. And you know what record that's going to break? Last year. So we're on a trajectory that continues to rise, and seeing heat like we've never seen before globally, and certainly here in Florida, it's been an incredible hot summer, and even November. I mean, it's about time to have turkey, and it was 90 degrees this week, right? So we had record heat. Christmas decorations are going up, and it's extremely hot. So that's we got some cooler weather coming, I think, so that's something to look forward to. But studies show the correlation between heat waves and higher rates of violence and suicide, as I mentioned. So not just storms, but also heat can trigger thoughts of suicide as well. There are the natural disasters, and we've talked a lot about this, but the hurricanes, floods, wildfires. Last year, remember the Canadian wildfires? Out of control all year. It was so bad that the weather set up, the upper level wind set up, and it blew all of that from Canada to here. Do you remember that, a couple of days? It got so hazy, and the sky kind of got orangish. You walked outside and you're like, what's going on? And then it turned out it was Canadian wildfires. So that has a big impact as well. That can cause trauma, stress, and anxiety again. Chronic stress, when it keeps going, so the ongoing climate warming and the unpredictability of it in people's minds, they don't know what to expect, can cause a lot of stress and anxiety as well. And then you got to think about the impact on vulnerable populations. Of course, we always talk about our elderly and our kids. It always will be more dangerous for them. You wonder about the future of kids here to be outside playing sports. We talked yesterday about the heat index and how you can get to a dangerous level where you're in the danger zone the whole time when you're outside. So, how high can you go with that before kids can't be outside doing sports? There's a lot of things to think about here. The economic strain is strange. The climate change can affect agriculture, fishing, tourism. We get red tide, what happens? You can't fish. People don't want to come see the beach. So tourism is down. Florida depends on tourism, of course, the number one thing. So it can affect that in a great way. And of course, you're going to see that trend of stress and anxiety over and over in all of these issues. Loss of community and culture. And this is a really interesting one because people get displaced. You have neighbors, and those neighbors become friends, and it's a community. and some people have to leave that. And that's a big life change right there. And there are some places in the world where the government is buying them out, saying you got to go. It's costing too much. It's hard for the government to help when you keep doing the same thing over and over. So, you fix a problem and then you just wait for it to happen again. That's a tough way to go. So there are entire generations of families that have lived in these areas that now are being displaced. So that's tough. And this is really interesting. Ecological grief. So people that really, really love the environment. And I don't know who this is, but I felt like I've met him before, but maybe out there in a mangrove somewhere. But people that love that, and they see the environment changing, and they see the bad things happening, and that can cause high levels of grief and sadness when they see their environment that they love so dearly start to change. People we don't have emotions. Whoever drives across one of our bridges and sees a dolphin pop out of the water, that's our environment. And then when you hear, these things are changing because of water temperatures, it's changing their environment, it can be something that definitely negatively affects you. So a stat right here, about 27% of Americans say they are very worried about the climate. The amount of people that are alarmed about climate warming has almost tripled. So that's another higher level in the past 6 years. So it's definitely a trend in the wrong direction, but it makes sense with what we're seeing. And I think that probably doesn't surprise most of us in this room. People that are alarmed, so the highest level, they don't know what to do. And it's really hard because you don't know who you can trust, what information you can trust. And that's one thing Bob and I really pride ourselves on, is being people in the community that you can meet and shake hands with. We're here. You can read things we write in Sarasota Magazine, see us on TV. We're here, and we're talking about climate impacts here. And so hopefully we're a source you can trust. We're not biased. We're not political. We're just here for you and to help our community understand what's going on. So we try to be that source because people in these studies say they crave it, they need it, they want it. And so we try to do that. And again, that's why we're all here today, and that's why Bob put this event on to help give you guys the information that you need, and I think that you're seeking. So one thing we find out is when people get educated, they have less anxiety. So once they know from a source they trust, and it makes sense to them, then they feel less anxiety, because there's nothing worse than the fear of the unknown. Write that one down. So there's enormous work to be done in starting today. We actually started yesterday, but on the mental health side, starting today, and concerns that we all feel have to be met with action to make a difference, and we're going to talk about that. 75% of young people, 16 to 24, said climate change is making their future, what's going on in their mind, frightening. So you see different health terms there. These are developing health terms. It's not in all the medical schools yet. It's slowly making some progress there, but physicians, doctors are not necessarily trained on this. So, maybe you find a doctor that definitely is educated himself or herself on the climate issue, because I think it's such an emerging big thing they're going to see with their patients as we continue to see warmer and warmer years. Here's climate change anxiety based by race. This is interesting. Race, gender, and generation. So that is interesting there. You can make your own conclusions. I'm not sure why. We'd have to ask them. But if you want to get that graphic, there you go. It is very interesting. And by the way, if you guys need any information from this, feel free to reach out, send me an email, and I'll get that to you. So we must show, I said this at the beginning, we must show optimism and we must educate, because Bob and I aren't giving up. We're just getting started, right, Bob? There's a future here. There's a bright future. And the more of us that talk about it, the more of us that give climate a voice, the more we all contribute to the climate movement. We make our leaders and our decision makers know we care. That's when it starts to happen. And we're slowly doing that, but we have a long way to go. So it's important we don't lose hope, because hopelessness breeds apathy. And once you feel like there's no chance, you just don't care. You just ride it out. The CAC is always edging our community. The CEO of DreamWorks is right over there. Is DreamWorks Pixar, by the way? Anyway, you'll see.
I heard it was a large company.
Did you bring your checkbook?
Yeah, thank you. So you'll see a lot of, Bob writes a lot of stuff for Sarasota Magazine, and you'll see us in a lot of places as well, but we're great partners with them, and they're just tremendous. And Sarasota Magazine cares so much about our community, and they show that every day, not just in climate and weather stuff, but they're just engaged, so and I thank you for that. We love what you guys do there. The Climate Adaptation Center has appeared, and this is a rough estimate by me. I just kind of went, okay, that looks about, every bit of this, about 40 times in various media on dozen outlets. So the media is picking our message up, and they are finding it more and more important, showing that they're getting clicks and reads and views, which means you guys do care, and increasingly so. So thank you for that, and we will continue to work really hard on that outreach, because we can't have a conference every day, but our voice is out there, and we are delivering the message on a routine basis on our media, on our social media, and on all the media outlets that you engage with. The CAC has reached nearly 1 million different people via social media and has educated thousands of local community members during numerous climate presentations this year. So we do have a big footprint, and we do work really hard to make sure we're reaching as many people as we can. Our next steps will be to be truthful and accurate reporting. Bob just said a few minutes ago that we do have to be honest with what's happening, even though it's a little bit, that message can be a little bit of a gloomy message. It doesn't always feel good, but it's important that we tell the truth, because people need to know what's happening, and we don't want to downplay it or greenwash. You see some businesses will greenwash, which means they kind of give the appearance they care, or the appearance they're doing something, but we need impactful things. We don't want to give an illusion, because that doesn't help any of us. But as I mentioned, you've heard me say it several times, and I want you all to carry this as well, that we stay optimistic, because we still have a great reason to be optimistic, and we are optimistic. We're seeing a new wave of optimism, and that is led by increasing knowledge. And, we can stand on the street corners all day long with our climate signs, but people have to want to digest that information. So, and we're seeing that. People want to know, and that's a great thing. It's driven by everyone from local experts like us, but also national leaders, and people that think and believe we can find solutions, and we certainly can. Last study, according to a Yale University study, very few, and this is a positive, this is optimism, and I'm glad to see this study here, but very few Americans are fatalistic about it, so they do believe that we can solve the problem. And as long as they believe we can solve the problem, we'll have that energy to make that happen, and for people to give it the voice. Because if you guys don't give it a voice, nobody's going to care. Politicians, decision makers will make decisions based on other priorities that they have to deal with. But when they know we care, and if they make wrong decisions in that, then we make a difference. And the CAC certainly feels that as well. Steps need to be taken by our medical community, our education establishment, government, philanthropic community, and they must be informed by science and, of course, not by fear. That's it. I hope you feel a little bit positive, because we are. Get some positive goosebumps. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me, and I thank you for your time today. Thank you.